Good morning. Hey, let's go. I got Kerry Ann Gooden on the second episode of the Sit Rep podcast where we help you win in real estate. And today we're talking about that first week from a mortgage professional's lens on what happens with a VA buyer. Okay. Kerry Ann, U.S. Marine extraordinaire, investor. You do a bunch of things, right? How long did you spend in the Marine Corps?
Oh, well, I am Kerry Ann. I'm a mortgage loan officer at the moment, and I spent 8 years in the Marine Corps. During that time, my husband and I served, so I did 8 years and he did 10 years. Mm-hmm. And while we were in, we purchased our first home utilizing the VA loan. Mm-hmm. So during that time, we had no clue what the heck a VA loan was. I didn't find out that I had the benefit until I was a staff sergeant. So that was a year before I got out. So I purchased my first home then, and ever since then, I've been having that bug to invest and utilize my equity instead of sitting on it and be house rich while watching my equity grow and not utilizing it. So
magnificent. Well, hey, let's unpack it, man. You're one of the top producing mortgage professionals in Military Mortgage Group, and you've been in the game for how long?
Less than a year.
Less than a year, y'all, and she's rocking and rolling. Now, uniquely, they are a military team, the Gooden team, okay? And her husband and I were at DI school together. I was the instructor, and then he's a magnanimous Marine, very hard worker, and he brought his intelligent wife along, and I found out what was who was really the rainmaker. No, I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm about to get her in trouble. But I found out we were able to get Kerry Ann Gooden on the team as a mortgage professional, and she always does things with the heart. So thank you for coming on the show. We got a lot to unpack. Today we're going to be talking about offers accepted with a VA buyer or any buyer. We're going to be talking about the first 5 things that happens from a mortgage lens when you get into escrow. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the offers accepted. Okay. When you get a client, Connie and I talked about what happens in regard to getting approved and everything else, but now the offer's accepted. Why do you make the phone call? Why is it important for you to make the phone call to the listing agent, and why do you do that?
Okay, so it is very important to make the call to the listing agent because you want to iron out any fine details that might be, in the home, whether it is a solar contract, whether it is a water treatment contract or any additional lien. So you want to tighten that out with the listing agent and also let them know who you are. Because during that escrow process, it may last 15, 30 days, sometimes 45 days, depending on the transaction. You want to make sure that you all are communicating and everyone knows who's doing what in the transaction.
I like that you do that because I noticed that anytime that I send offers out and I CC you, you always make the phone call to the agent to introduce yourself. So thank you for doing that, because what it does for us as realtors, when that loan officer is communicating like this deal is really good, and they say, hey, I'm Kerry Ann, and they got reviews, then I have evidence to show that that person is good, because typically they'll Google you and see that you do a lot of business. So I really appreciate that phone call. Now let's talk about the documentation and that after the offer's accepted. Why do you want to do a DU approval and look at that person's profile?
Okay, so once your offer is accepted, you want to do a DU because you want to ensure that the affordability is still there for your buyer. You want to ensure that you go through everything that the underwriter might be looking at too, because that DU is pretty much a plan of action for the borrower as well as the person that's representing them financially, their mortgage lender, to ensure that they know what the underwriter will be looking for. It breaks down the income portion, the liability, whether or not they will require any credit explanation. So a lot of times that DU gives you the ability to strategize your plan before getting into escrow. So when I do that final run of the DU, I want to ensure that my borrower knows, okay, ahead of time, these are some of the things that might come up in escrow that you might have to answer to the underwriter. So it's never a surprise to them when it does come up. Now, if you don't tell me and it comes up, then that's a different story. But we are always able to work through it because we stick to the guideline. Stick to the VA guideline and you will lead your client to success.
That's a really, really good one. I'm going to ask you another question too. So when you do a desktop underwritten approval, I notice that you don't tell any clients no. So if a person has bad credit, do you have to have good credit to utilize the VA loan?
Absolutely not. And I'll ask you, Tony, because you know a lot about the VA loan. Is there a credit limit or is there a credit score that is required for using the VA loan?
No.
Absolutely not.
I think that's how whatever it is.
Absolutely not.
I'm glad that you said that because this is the difference between working with someone that you can actually talk to. If you go to Federal Navy or AAUS, I don't want to disappear, y'all. So if somebody comes hunting, I don't want to take any business from them, but working with someone that can tell you, like, I like how you don't say no if a client, you give them a roadmap into
Absolutely.
getting approved. So you've dealt with some challenging issues, right? Explain what the roadmap is, and then we're going to go over to reviewing the documents.
And I'll also say too, Tony, the reason why I don't say no is because I've been in that shoe before. I've been in that position where I wanted someone to say yes to me because I've been through the process before. And additionally, I'm a veteran. So I know what your BAH looks like. I know what your promotion schedule is looking like.
Preach.
So I'll be able to help plan ahead of, okay, and also answer questions to the underwriter without going back to my borrower to ask them questions because I know what a PCS orders is. So those things are very important in that. So what was the question again?
You basically talking about why it's important to review the documentation and the DU. That's what we were talking about.
No, you had asked something else on top of that.
Reviewing the documents. Like when you're reviewing the documents, why do you never tell clients no?
Oh, why do I not say no? So I never say no because of that, but additionally, because I know that there might be stuff on their credit that we can work through. We can put them on a plan, a roadmap, maybe 2 months, 3 months to 6 months, or sometimes you have borrowers that need a year to plan out because they're getting promoted in a year. Maybe they're a PFC Lance Corporal with hopes of becoming a homeowner and also a home investor, but they just don't have the income at the moment. So we'll put them on a plan. We'll also help them with strategies to save. So it goes beyond just a client borrower, a borrower relationship of a professional. It also goes to me saying, that is my brother in arms, brother or sister in arms. So I'm going to make sure that I walk them through the process. I handhold them through the process if needs be to get them to the finish line of their goals. Because at the end of the day, you come to us in need. So obviously you want to make that step. So we're going to help you get to that finish line.
That's good, man. And I like that part because a lot of people will say, no, do you really think these big institutions have to solicit for business, right? They don't care. They're just going to give you a yes or no. So it's good. Do you think that the banks are going to give you, tell you what you need to pay down to get a better interest rate? No, because they make more money. Right. So to her point, make sure you're rocking with a loan officer that will give you what you need to do in order to get in the best financial picture as possible. And the only way that you could do that is getting documentation with the finances and everything else. Magnificent, Kerry Ann. The next thing that I want to talk about is why is it important to get all of the documentation up front so you can paint that picture and work through that? Why is it important to stay within the timeline with purchasing? Because I know sometimes there could be a late for a short closing. Can you give an example of why it's essential to get that documentation quick?
Yes. So I usually ask for all the documentation before I send out a pre-approval letter. And the reason being is because I want to make sure that I am honest with the borrower. And I also see the big picture of what I'm working with to get you to your finish line. So some of the documentations that we require is your W-2, so your 2 years of W-2, your tax return, your LES, most recent. If you're a veteran and you have a job, your 30 days of pay stub. We also need your driver's license. So these are typical things that are asked when you apply for any loan, but they go more in depth because the range of the loan that you're borrowing from the lender is a high amount. It's a high number amount. So we're going to go through your documents to ensure that before you get to the investors table, you already know whether or not you're approved. But if you don't bring these up early in the transaction, we'll be 20 days into escrow and we're finding out that, you've defaulted on something that might hold it up. So the earlier we get all the documents that are needed, once we receive those conditions back from the underwriter, who's the person that reviews your documents at the bank, then we're able to get you clear to close in a timely manner and your keys before the close of escrow.
Now, that's also another good thing. Now, Kerry Ann and I are gonna look at the camera right now. Kerry Ann, look at the camera.
Okay.
We gonna tell y'all. Listen, check it out. Do not, come on, say it with me. Do not be buying stuff while you are in escrow. On your credit.
On your credit. Unless you gonna pay it off before it hits your credit. But yes, you're right.
Now tell us why that's important from a loan perspective.
So just like any other transaction, if you get your credit ran, if you purchase something within that 30-day time span, your creditor is going to report that on your credit score. And that could be the determining factor of whether or not you can close that loan. So we ask our borrowers, and we stress it and emphasize it at the beginning of the transaction and also during the transaction, do not borrow additional credit while you are in escrow. Or even if you are in the home buying process, consult with us. Something else I want to add, even though it's not with credit, is income, because it does affect your ability to borrow. If you're changing jobs during this transaction, please consult with us as well. We see a lot of people where they don't disclose these things, and then when we get into escrow, we find out and we cannot close the loan. So the more honest you are as a borrower, the more we can do to help you and also navigate you through and create that roadmap, as Anthony said, to get you to success.
That's good, man. I'm telling y'all, man, there's a reason why that she's telling you guys these things. And this is the reason why you want to talk to someone. If you're calling the bank and stuff like that, you can't talk to anyone. But if you go out and you buy that llama cover couch that you wanted so bad, and you went down to Jerome's and it's you got $6,000 more because you want all of this snuggly furniture. And for some reason, people like to buy new cars. Hey, I just got this new Ford F-150. And you're like, we close next week. What are you doing?
Yes,
right?
yes.
That could be the determining factor because your debt to income ratio changes. So that is a good nugget. I don't want to gloss over that. I want to highlight that. Yes. Don't be buying stuff. Eat bread and water until you, no, I'm joking. You don't have to eat bread and water, but don't be doing anything. Noodles. And then also another thing too, before we go to our last and final chicken nugget, we coming in for a landing. All right. Is the loan estimate. Estimate. I cannot tell you enough why this is important. Kerry Ann, can you explain what a loan estimate is and go over the rate lock for our last and final nugget for today?
Yes. The loan estimate is the estimate that your mortgage professional will provide to you within the first 3 days of going into escrow or starting your transaction. That estimate is very important because it gives you a breakdown of some of the fees or closing costs that are going to be assessed within your transaction. Additionally, this loan estimate will also provide you any origination points or discount points that the lender might be charging you within this transaction. And I want to talk about those things because I work with a lot of veterans where they've been working with, mortgage professionals prior, and they don't understand some of the costs and fees that are being charged to them on their loan estimate. But it is an estimate of all the fees that are going to be charged to you. It may be a over budgeted or overestimated amount, but that's because we want to ensure that at the end of the transaction, you're not surprised with any number that you're going to be required to come in at closing. Although this transaction does not require, for a VA, it doesn't require a down payment, there are going to be costs that are assessed on your new home that you're going to have to pay up front. So those are your closing costs, as well as some of the fees that the county or the city might charge you to transfer those titles or taxes over. So you want to make sure that you understand and your loan professional goes through this with you. And if they don't, come see us, because we'll be able to answer those questions just to give you that warm and fuzzy that you're making the right decision and you're not being deceived.
Now you see, man, this was a magnificent podcast. Now you see why it's important. And just another thing that I definitely want to say in regard to working with someone that that will sit down and give you education is this. A loan officer has relationship with escrow people. So if they're doing refinances and stuff like that, then and numbers get tight, they might be able to call that title person or that escrow person, because they do a lot of business with them, and say, hey, we're a little tight on funds. Can you discount your fees? And then now you pay less cost. So that's the reason why you want to interconnect with Kerry Ann Gooden, and also Bernard that's not here today, but we'll be interviewing him next in regard to the second week of from a mortgage perspective, what happens during that process for a VA buyer. Kerry Ann, this has been a magnificent podcast. Thank you for sharing your information. Now, I do have a question. Yes. How can they reach you?
You can reach me on Instagram, Kerry Ann, the MLO, or our team page, Team Gooden VA Home Loans, as well as Facebook, Kerry Ann Gooden.
Magnificent. So today's podcast, let's go over a recap. We talked about the earnest money deposit. We talked about offer is accepted, making phone calls, and why that's important for the loan officer to do that. We talked about homeowners association and appraisal getting ordered. We also talked about reviewing documents and why that's important. And then also we talked about the loan estimate and a short close. Those are the 5 top things that need to happen in regard to looking at it from a lender's perspective in regard to a VA buyer purchasing their first home. Now, listen, we're coming to a theater near you to going over what happens in week 3 with Military Mortgage Group. Okay, so if this information was invaluable to you, follow us on wire10k.com, and then also on Facebook, Win in Real Estate, where we help you get to the bag with the VA home loan. I'm Anthony Glenn. I can be found at anthony10k.com. Let's freaking go. Kerry Ann, thank you for joining us, and Semper Fi.
Thank you. Semper Fi.